market crash has begun. Now, that's the type of headline you're going to get from a lot of media sources. As we move forward and progress, traditional legacy media is dying off. They're scrambling and they're coming out with bigger and bolder headlines. It's part of the game, unfortunately, for their survival. They're just fighting for their survival, but they need to make more and more outlandish claims. And now on YouTube, of course, some of the most outlandish claims come from channels that are AI generated. So someone behind a computer for maybe an hour's worth of time, AI generates some text, has AI generate some photos, they throw it in, and then they come out with articles that were YouTube videos that are very clickable. They make a ton of money. They can make, $6,000 to $20,000, even more for these videos. But I want to run through that, this whole notion that the EV car market is like the crash has begun, like EV vehicles are going to go away. Because if that's, I think maybe a lot of people are clicking on that because that's what they hope. And I'm here to give you the real deal. Don't be fooled by this. For now, EVs are not going away. I'm going to explain why. And it's not because I'm in love with EVs. Heck, one of the topics is going to be about what I dislike about my EV, and try to help you all out with that whole EV, the EVs being forced upon us. So with them being forced, they're not going to disappear. But let's run through all the claims that are being made for these EVs. Now, of course, they are being forced upon us, and that is, I think, something that rubs most everybody the wrong way. But here are some of the big either from YouTube or from big media, legacy media, claims that are being made to get clicks. We're going to run through them and then tell you what the real deal is. So used EV prices, they're saying they're down 33.7%, and this is one of the arguments to how the crash has started on EVs and how EVs are going to disappear. Here in Canada, manufacturers are going to be obligated to sell EVs by 2035. It's probably it'll be probably announced last minute, but I bet the United States, there's good chances they're going to be forced to that point as well later down the road. In Europe, it's a guaranteed thing, it looks like. But yes, used EV prices are down 33.7%. Legacy media is right. AI generated videos on YouTube with big bold titles that everyone clicks on. You're right. You're completely right. Used prices are down by 33.7% on EVs from a year ago. But the general market is down. The used market is in general down by roughly 30%. So it's not an argument for how EVs are going to go away, especially not when they're going to be forced upon us. Now, it's not all doom and gloom and, red background scenario, because, let's go through the facts. Yes, they're down by $17,879 on average. So that's your used EV. And, well, there's the claim being made, and this one's actually, we'll talk about it. Ford has cut EV production in half. That is a big claim that's being made. And there's some truth to it, but really, YouTube, legacy media, they all really need to learn how to read into a story and also read properly what gets said by CEOs and companies. So yes, Jim Farley did announce that EV production would get cut in half. However, there's a very important word in what he said, and that's planned EV production. So remember back when we go back to 2021 and 2022, how EVs were so unbelievably hot, and actually they're depreciating the least back in 2020, 2021, 2022. Now they're depreciating the most. But Ford, to meet that demand, originally they were going to make something around 60,000 F-150 Lightnings. And then they said, we're going to double production. And then they said, we're going to double production. And they're they got to the point where if you go with their approximate assumed numbers for their original production versus doubling it and then doubling it again, Ford, without giving exact numbers, we're talking about over 300,000 units being produced per year. And so many people have assumed or misread into this and figured, wow, yeah, I even have colleagues that did this. They're like, wow, Ford is currently only producing roughly 4,000 Lightnings per month, and they're going to cut that in half. EVs are gone. They're done. 2,000 Lightning trucks per month. This is a sign of the end for EV vehicles. But the problem is so many people, colleagues, media, just didn't take the time to read something the way you would if you're a philosophy major, for example, and the paragraph you have to read it 10 times before really understanding what it is. And what it is that Ford is cutting back in half that planned production. At one point, Ford was planning on making 600,000 by 2026. If I recall correctly, they're going to be wanting to make 600,000 EV units. Okay, so the Lightning they're not going to make, whether it's 300,000 or 400,000, they're going to cut that in half. It's still a lot of EVs. And they don't have a whole lot of choice in making these EVs. And we'll talk about that at the end of this episode, why they don't have a choice in making these EVs for the moment. Now, other claims that are being made is that Tesla has reduced prices 3 times in 1 quarter. Now, this is true. Okay, the Model X decreased by $21,775. And, well, that is a huge decrease. And, they are piling up on lots because they don't sell immediately. But that doesn't mean they're not selling. It just means that they're taking longer to sell. So they're going to continue producing them. This isn't something that's going to be going away. Electric vehicles aren't going to be going away. But this whole idea of absolutely do not buy an electric vehicle, it's a bit of a silly notion, especially when you consider all the whether it's legacy media or whether it's YouTube channels, they're talking about how the prices have decreased. A Model X has decreased by $21,775. So, if anything, that's more reason to buy. However, often when something's seen as very desirable and hard to get your hands on, people rush in. Maybe there isn't a coincidence why Toyota lots have very few vehicles on them. Toyota, I think you could speculate, and I wonder, please, in the comments, what do you think? Is Toyota deliberately keeping inventories low? Meanwhile, their production is at historic record highs? And is it a coincidence that in the North American market, Toyota makes less money per unit than they do elsewhere? But production is at record level highs. So it's about that desirability. I think they want to build desirability behind the brand by keeping inventories low so that they have a chance to raise prices. So I'm a strong believer that Toyota will be raising prices. Now, the Model S, so lots are full, yes, and there are these big price decreases. The Model S decreased by $18,596. And then you've got another one of the models, one of the less expensive models, decreased by $14,716. So, if this was the stock market and you're investing in these vehicles like stocks, you'd be pretty upset right now. And I think a lot of people who bought before these price drops are pretty upset. I bought my Lightning before the price drop, and I can tell you I was upset when that price dropped because, well, it really affected my resale value. The vehicle depreciated in a day because of that news. If you drop it by $10,000, the Lightning, well, guess what? My trade-in, my vehicle has depreciated by $10,000 in a day, and that hurts. Now, EVs are taking 2 times longer to sell than their gas counterparts, and that is completely true. And part of this is because of the infrastructure. I think part of the reason people aren't rushing into EVs is because a lot of the initial adopters, the people that they're a combination of people that like to have the latest and greatest, the new toys. They've bought their vehicles. They've got their electric trucks. They've got their Teslas. So early adopters have bought. And now we've got an issue. You've got an infrastructure that in places is inadequate. Now, don't be fooled. YouTube videos that tell you don't buy an electric vehicle, it's a scam, the infrastructure can't handle it, that's a generalization. And I agree with part of that generalization in certain areas. The infrastructure isn't great. I had a painful experience because in my area, I tried charging on a 50 kilowatt charger for an hour. And yeah, I went from about 32% to 60 some percent, but it wasn't enough. And it was an hour. It was a long stop. But EV technology will advance. There's different battery technologies coming down the road. Ford has a patent so that you can have chargers that charge much faster without the cable melting, because that's one challenge when it comes to charging these EVs. If you charge them, if the charger puts out too much power, too much current, there's a lot of heat that goes along with that current, and it will literally melt the cable. But that's going to get worked on. Remember, original 1918 vehicles, gas-powered vehicles, were not the vehicles they are today. They've become many, many, many folds better. So infrastructure is an issue. So when you hear about that, yeah, when you also hear that there's 4,000 EVs parked sitting in lots, that's also true. But that's because dealers need inventory, not Tesla, obviously, but other electric like Ford, Kia, Hyundai, GM, Volvo. It's normal to have vehicles sit on lots. So it's very, the scandalous headline that then is backed by the idea that there's 4,000 unsold EVs in the US is not a sign that, the EVs are going away and there's a complete crash. This massive crash will lead to the death of EVs. No, it's a sign that, like gasoline powered vehicles, they're just available to go buy on lots, but they are taking twice as long to sell right now as opposed to their gasoline counterparts. But I think a lot of that is, with legacy media and YouTube very much poo-pooing on electric vehicles. I think, and originally, remember, YouTubers and YouTube videos were all back in 2020. It was all about this new electric vehicle and it's the most amazing thing ever and you've got to get one of these. And what have I always said? Regular, more mainstream media or media that independent media that tries to be more like mainstream media will always they look at what are people's emotions and now let's play with them. And they won't swim against the current. So when a new model comes out, it's a very positive current. You're going down the river towards the lake's beautiful, it's going to be the best day ever, and that's how they present these vehicles. The hype and the newness, they go with that flow. It's the best vehicle ever, everyone should get one, this is revolutionary, it's amazing. And then soon as everyone gets to the lake and people are starting to own these, and they've kind of been around and the newness and excitement wears off, what do? I've always said it, they will crap on it to an extreme. So they go from one extreme to this is the best thing since sliced bread, just because it's new and it's going to get them clicks and make them the money, the cheddar. And then I've always said, what happens once the newness wears off? Go from one extreme positivity, to extreme negativity. And I'm here about giving you the real deal, no BS, straight up. We'll get to, yes, EVs are forced. That's a big reason why they're going to stick around. Now they're taking 2 times longer to sell than their gas counterparts, meaning they are stacking up. Tesla, that means they'll be in Tesla, waiting lots, waiting to be purchased. And for the traditional, legacy automakers, it means you're going to see a whole bunch in and on the lots, in the dealers. But you're really going to see the more expensive ones collecting because, well, the reality of it is we're in an economy that is in a recession. They're going to admit it probably 6 to 12 months after. I'd say we've already been in a recession for 6 months, and all my stocks are being built based on that. I'm very, very heavily invested in TMF because I believe they're going to have to drop interest rates. One of 2 things is going to happen. They're either dropping interest rates to save the economy and keep the status quo, or they're just going to they're not going to drop interest rates. They're going to completely ruin the economy, create crisis, to then bring in a new option. Some people would call it a new world order, or just a new way of being, with digital currency, more surveillance, less freedom. We'll save that to the end because that's borderline a rant. But one of those two options, and I'm being positive and I'm hoping for the best. If my money's going to disappear anyways, well, I'll bet on the positive option that the economy will be saved with lower interest rates. So I have heavily invested in TMF. Now, and I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I'm just sharing with you what I'm doing with my money. And of course, I invested in classic cars because I bought 2 Porsche 911s, a 1999 and a 2000, and I have a Bronco. So if it is going to be the end of the world, well, the Bronco will be a good go everywhere and anywhere vehicle. Now, prices. Media is talking about these crazy prices. You'll have 1 week a story about how there's price cuts, and that's incredible. And then, a week or two later, they're talking about how the prices are way too high, and this is why EVs aren't selling. Well, they are collecting on lots, and there is truth to prices being too high, because the ones that are collecting on lots, I've gone around to different dealerships. I work at a dealership, have some shares in the co-op, and I can tell you, the vehicles, dealers are upset because the electric vehicles that are sticking around on the lots are the most expensive ones. And that has to do with the economy. It has to do with people's bank accounts. And it also has to do with, people are, now that the early adopters, the initial adopters have just rushed in and thrown all the money they can to make sure that they have the first vehicle. Remember, the first Lightnings were selling used $50,000 over MSRP. What happened? Well, those were early adopters. They're wealthy and they're willing to pay more. And there's a lot of people buying these early electric models because they wanted to resell to someone who is in a hurry and is an early adopter and make money with them. So you've got all the resellers, the wholesalers, the flippers. They're not buying anymore. So that's a huge drop in orders and purchases. You have the initial adopters gone. So who's left? Smart people. People who look at their bank account, people who need to budget. You're not going to buy a platinum Lightning or a crazy fully loaded $100,000 Tesla or Lucid. For Lucid, they're going to have trouble coming into the future because those initial adopters, they're gone. And your product better be pretty incredible and pretty amazing to actually jump into a Lucid vehicle because they're very expensive. And I see at Ford, we're selling I don't remember the last time we sold a platinum Lightning. A Lariat extended range battery, the occasional sale, it still fits within the realm of logic at 100,000, 102,000 Canadian compared to an equally equipped gasoline, petrol powered version at about, for a 2023, you're looking at about 86,000. If you do enough, if you're spending 8,000 in fuel per year, you're like, yeah, you know what? Eventually, there's a cost savings to buying this extended range Lightning, and I really want the roof and the leather. There's a few of those. There's a few XLT extended range battery, but there is a huge and wild demand for the Pro model, and there's a huge and wild demand for the XLT standard range battery. But yes, for there to be a high demand, it needs to make more sense than gas, because logical people who have a budget, who are affected by the fact that food has increased basically twice as much within 1 year, and that's inflation. And this is, inflation is just another, how governments spend our money, how they print off money. People figure, it doesn't matter. They're printing money. What effect does it have on me? Well, how much they spend is a direct, I believe it was Carl Sagan that said this, what governments spend is it's direct taxation back on you, because it's directly linked to inflation, and you're going to pay for it when you go to buy stuff. So purchase price is an issue with EVs. Lithium is the cost of lithium. It had skyrocketed. It's starting to cool down. So there could be more price reductions coming as cost of materials go down and as new technologies, new batteries come out. So that's a don't be fooled section right there. It's its own topic. If you buy an electric vehicle right now, there is the danger. I highly recommend that you lease. It'll save you thousands, because if you buy and you want to switch in 4 years, but the batteries are no longer lithium, let's say they're not lithium, your regular lithium battery, with all the rare minerals that have their problems in regards to pollution, rarity, and cost. If they go to, let's say Ford is going to be coming out with a lithium iron phosphate battery that charges faster. Well, it charges faster because you can charge at, full potential. It can take the full current coming in from 0% to 100%. That could very well cause your current vehicle to depreciate. So I would highly recommend that you lease these vehicles. Now, price, of course, that's the major hurdle right now, and I do suspect prices are going to go down. From what I'm hearing, Ford has these fixed prices in the window sticker, but there's chances prices could go down more if the cost of fabrication comes down. Now, used EVs, they're being claimed as being unsellable, and how they've dropped by 30%. So don't touch EVs. They're a scam. They depreciate so much. From 2021 to now, or even from 2022 to now, gasoline-powered vehicles have also depreciated. Used vehicles have also depreciated by 30%. Now, I know if you're looking at used lots in your area, you might find that the prices are very similar to what they were 6 months or 12 months ago. But if so, that's just a dealer not being smart enough to rapidly lower their prices to follow the market, and they're going to pay for it later on. They're going to pay high interest now on vehicles they will not be able to sell. Smart dealers that do a lot of, they move metal, and you got to move this metal when you're in a situation. All vehicles right now, gas and electric, used, are going down in value and have been in the last 6 months. So you need to get those units off your lot. Take a small loss now to avoid taking a huge loss later. So if you're a dealer, if you're running a used dealership, or if you're managing a used dealership, that's advice to help save you thousands of dollars. I do suspect if you're a buyer, now is a great time to buy used vehicles. Used vehicle, gas or electric, they've just dropped by 30%, and they could very well peak up, as they traditionally do, come spring. So December, January, February, good months to buy a used vehicle. They will go back up most likely when people get their checks from get money back from doing their taxes. So there's also talk how these electric vehicles, one particular YouTube channel that got almost 400,000 views, might finish at 1 million views. I'm just going to read this comment here. Did you just put up a picture of an ID4 because of the text that I sent you tonight? I haven't read the text because I was dealing with some baby issues, but I do like having different brands up here. There's a picture of different brands. So thank you very much, Ridgeview, for the question, but I'm going to check out your text and see what I can do with it. I do love answering and having, friendship with the very regular followers of the channel, especially my monitor. But my friendship is pretty open. You can contact me over at Johnny's Car Care and Reviews over at Instagram. I'm on there. I check that more often than, let's say, X. I'm ever so slightly on X, and I'm also on Rumble. So this one channel that's probably going to be seen by 1 million people is saying that EVs are a scam from all the brands. Do not buy them, because guess what? They're going to be a horrible environmental impact, because they foresee that, these 4,000 EVs and more coming down the pipeline, they're just not going to sell. They paint this picture of this almost post-apocalyptic scenario where you'll have tens, if not hundreds of thousands of EVs that the government's forced big manufacturers to make, just sitting around. And then, of course, those rare minerals, the cobalt and the lithium, they're just going to pollute. That's going to be true once these vehicles have been used for 20 years. But these vehicles are going to sell. Believe you me, the market will adjust itself. Just like I believe the Fed will adjust and lower interest rates to get us out of this recession that they have yet to admit we're in, but we are in a recession. Viewers send me comments. I see what goes on. I go through the Costco, there's maybe 30 parking lots left Friday night. And guess what? So, and this is right before Christmas. A lot of those shopping carts weren't filled to the brim. A lot of them were sadly just getting the bare necessities. I heard the conversations being had by people of saying, oh, well, we can't just eat pasta. And then the other partner answering, well, that's what we can afford. So our daughter's just going to have to eat pasta. And this is the time of year where most people are like, if there's any available income, it's like, yeah, it's the time of year. Let's spoil ourselves. Let's buy beer, wine, turkey, ham, steaks. Let's go all out. We'll have ribs. We'll, the days we're off, we're going to really enjoy life. Outsider reviews, thank you. I need someone in the chat supporting me here. So yes, EVs, even if your electricity comes from coal, EVs eventually will have an advantage. It takes about, I was from the channel Engineering something or another. He calculated out, it was about 17 years. And these batteries are assumed to lose about 2% efficacy every year. So 10 years down the road, 20%. 20 years down the road, they'll have used roughly 40% of their efficacy, and that's probably about the time we're going to start thinking about, getting rid of it. But then they need to put these batteries into things like forklifts and whatnot. Now, so channels, media, they're saying they're going to be horrible for the environment, and that unsold EVs, there's going to be tens of thousands of unsold EVs, and they're going to get abandoned. So that doesn't mean that EVs are going to crash. We've talked about this, so I won't explain it more. But they also mentioned, not just this channel, that probably 1 million or 2 million people are going to see, but I've heard this from the big legacy media as well, that over 3,000 dealers sent a letter to Biden, and that they're demonstrating. They're expressing their concern against the Biden administration's push for EVs, saying that this isn't going to work, that people don't want these vehicles. Well, here's the real deal. I can tell you why EV dealers are upset with EVs. Price, lithium prices skyrocketed in the last 3 years. So now the price that EVs are being sold at, the problem is the more expensive ones are sitting on lots. The Platinum Lightning, for example. An extended range Lariat somewhat, but very much the Platinum Lightning is sitting around on lots, and dealers are paying 7% interest on that, and these vehicles are essentially being forced on them. They're also upset, for example, maybe you've heard of the lawsuit of some Ford dealers taking Ford to court because they don't like this idea that they have to put in whether it's in US dollars, about $1.4 million infrastructure to their dealership in order to have the right to sell these electric vehicles. They don't feel that's fair. So that's upsetting them, of course, as well. They're saying, look, you're forcing us to spend our family-owned businesses money on this expensive infrastructure, but then you have much, much, much lower profit margins for these vehicles than traditional gas-powered vehicles. And, they're sitting around and we're paying interest on them, but we're making more money at the end of the day. Even if we sold them on day one, we'd make less money. Just the potential profit range or the revenue built into the dealership's portion when they resell that vehicle, it's very, very slim. So yeah, no, dealers are not happy. They don't like how this is going down. They probably don't like how they have to compete against Tesla that has no dealers, meaning not as good service when it comes to asking questions, getting your vehicle serviced, having, just a information base and a base where you can be assisted by people. Not having dealers, I don't think is the right option. Having dealers that have more rules and regulations in regards to sales, I think is a fantastic idea. And on that, I'll say Prost. Because I think more protections need to be put in place for the buyers of vehicles. Now, some Ford dealers are suing Ford for that EV push, but there's a lot more going on with that than just EVs being dead and, the beginning of a massive crash that will lead to the death. It's a lot about cost, about price, about cheddar. Now, there's also being a claim being made from one particular YouTube channel that insurances will cost $6,000 per year for an EV. Now, later on, they go on to say as much as, Marie's not here, but as you may know, she's well placed in the insurance world, and many people know, obviously she knows, but even I know that someone's insurance can be extremely expensive no matter what they get, because, well, if they've been convicted of a crime, if they have bad credit, if they've gone a period of time without having insurance coverage on a vehicle, all these things can really increase premiums. If the vehicle's stolen a lot, if the vehicle costs a lot to repair, it'll cost more. And yes, EVs do cost a lot more to repair potentially, because there's stringent rules that if there's any casing damage on that battery, well, often the batteries really, there's a lot of work that needs to go into ensuring that there's no leak on that battery, because when water gets into these lithium batteries, guess what? They catch fire and they're very hard to put out, and they can cause a lot of damage. They can burn all the vehicles around them. It can be a major issue. So electric vehicles aren't going anywhere because of this guy right here. And unless he's going somewhere, currently, if the Democratic Party continues to run the United States, if the Liberal Party continues to run in Canada, electric vehicles aren't going anywhere because they're being forced on manufacturers. For the sheer survival of manufacturers, they have to go EV because they have carbon taxes. Essentially, manufacturers will get fined if they don't make EVs. Now, they could come out with some other technology that gets you 50 miles per gallon on a pickup truck, and if that other technology is an EV, well then yes, EVs could disappear because manufacturers find a solution that, help you get whether it's a Corvette, a Mustang, a huge pickup. The mass-produced high-volume vehicles are the biggest problem, because basically what's going on is manufacturers have to have a high mile per gallon. Slowly but surely, it's coming to 50 miles per gallon. Manufacturers need to get to 50 miles per gallon overall on average across all their vehicle sales. Otherwise, they will spend billions of dollars in fines, or pay billions of dollars in carbon credits to, let's say, Tesla, helping Tesla make more money, reduce their prices, and really you're paying your competitor to make it harder for you to compete, because you can't catch up if your competitor is always getting less and less expensive, or better and better. But in this case, Tesla is getting less and less expensive, harder for Dodge, Ford, and all the other companies to keep up. But if they don't keep up, they will pay billions of dollars to either Tesla or even more to the government. So that's the issue right there. These vehicles are getting forced on manufacturers. If they don't build them, they will not survive. And that's why you're seeing vehicles like the Dodge Charger and Dodge Challenger go out of existence. They're going EV. And the last Dodge Challenger rolled out of the factory December 22nd. That's a sad day, because we're being presented with less and less choice, and we're having our freedoms removed as time progresses, all in the name of safety. And, like a parent, no, you can't do that because it's for your safety. We're adults, and our governments are treating us like children and figuring that we can't make decisions for ourselves. We'll, choose to buy things that'll destroy the planet, will lead ourselves into extinction if they don't watch over us and create more and more stringent rules, and really they're creating laws to give themselves the right to spy on us. That's not normal. And this is Rant Talk, and it's going to go to the end of the live. So that ends this episode. So episode 1 is over. Now let's take a little break to switch up these topic. Lots of photos I didn't cover, but yes, they are getting cheaper, these electric vehicles, and they could continue to get cheaper. Don't forget that. They could definitely continue to get cheaper as the cost of materials go down. Manufacturers absolutely need to bring the price. They need to sell these no matter what. They need to sell these to avoid billions of dollars in fines or being forced to give billions of dollars to their competitors, which is also another way to, this year I'm going to shoot my right foot so I can keep on walking. And then next year I'm going to shoot my left foot so that I can keep on walking. And then I'm going to be, rolling around. And well, then to survive, I'm going to have to cut my arm off. This is the type of scenario that manufacturers are in. Ford, Dodge, GM, Volvo, Audi, they don't want to take away your Porsche. They don't want to take away your your gas-powered, petrol-powered engine. They love selling these vehicles. It's their bread and butter. It's what they know. It's what they're good at. They don't want to, willy-nilly go into the whole electric world and compete with Tesla, but they are forced to. There's no choice. The WB, you're going to like me tonight because I'm talking Corvettes, and you've got Marie's support, and I would love a prime cut steak. I had some ribs tonight, but I do miss my steaks. But over the Christmas holidays, I'm definitely having some Costco steaks. And I was testing out at a friend's house. My best friend made some, 40 or 60-day-old steak, aged steak, and we compared it to the Costco. And I'm not a snob. I'm going to say I really like the Costco steak. And I'm not, there's no promotion going on here. So, yeah, these vehicles it's all about survival, so they're going to continue to produce them, and they're going to find ways, and it's wild, because you'll get all the legacy media saying EVs are done, or the manufacturers are going to be done because they're losing billions of dollars on these. Heck, Ford this year is going to lose $3 to $5 billion for 2023 on their EV projects. But they're doing so because, let's say they lose $3 to $5 billion on these electric vehicles. Same thing for GM. Well, if Ford makes $11 billion, and if GM makes, anywhere from $9 to $15 billion, what's a loss in one department when you're making a lot in the other department, and you need to take a loss in department EV in order to be able to make that money, because you don't want to end up making $11 billion on the petrol side, have done nothing in regards to electric vehicles, hybrid vehicles, have a really high mile per gallon average across your fleet, and then the government goes, well, it's going to cost you $11 billion in fines, or you can give $5 billion to Tesla. You don't want to give $5 billion to your competitor, especially when other people are in line to give $5 billion to Tesla. Lots of talk about my shirt right now. I'm happy I'm not the only one here that likes the standard 1950s styling. I've got the old style glasses, and I've got the old style shirt, and I'm an old style guy. I think it's my job to take care of my wife, and that I have duties to and responsibilities to her, and she has duties and responsibilities to me, and that we both have our own set of skill sets that were made to complement each other, and that we're made to live together, have children, and eat steak, not bug powder. Again, going towards that rant, but this is a rantable topic. Being forced EVs is a very rantable topic, and I think it's something we all need to be vocal about, because the whole idea that CO2 is going to lead to human extinction is absolutely, quite potentially, I'll correct myself, quite potentially a farce. CO2 in the atmosphere, folks, is at 0.03 parts. At 0.02 parts, vegetation, below 0.02 parts CO2 in the atmosphere, vegetation dies off, meaning we'll have a heck of a time trying to survive, and it will be catastrophic for the planet. We've been at 0.07 parts CO2 in the atmosphere before, and there were animals, mammals, reptiles, and maybe even humans, depending whose side of history you're on, or at least primates, on the planet. So we've been at 0.07 before parts CO2. And this is being used to remove freedoms. And every decade, since the 1950s. Some sort of psychology op has been going on, a psyop has been going on the population, saying it would lead to the end of the world, whether it was glaciers melting, oil running out, and I forgot the other list of BS that we were told. We got through it. We got through it. So, folks, buy an EV if you like an EV. Don't buy an EV if you don't like EVs. But if you don't like EVs, or if you love EVs, either way, can you please vocally express that you want the right to choose? That if you like EVs, great for you. And if someone else doesn't like EVs, you know what? You can still like and appreciate that person. We're not in different warring camps. Let's not separate people into all these different little groups fighting against each other, being too distracted because they're arguing with trolls on the internet. Let's all try to come together and just realize that we can agree on a few things. That kindness is good and should be shared. That we're all just people doing what we can to be happy and take care of ourselves and our families. And that we should all be willing to fight, argument, verbally fight, not physically fight, but verbally fight for all our rights to choice, freedom of movement, freedom of choice, freedom to have families, freedom to buy homes and take care of ourselves, and freedom to work, and freedom to actually progress in life and, not work underneath a communist system or a system that labels any type of descending contrary to the main theme that's being spread by media as hate. If you think of Ireland, it's kind of ridiculous that the people protesting in Ireland are being classified as a bunch of racists that all need to be arrested. No, of course, the ones that are, if anyone lights anything on fire or does private damage to private property, yes, they should be punished. There's already laws for that. But, Ireland is already using what's going on with these riots, or the riots that went down in Ireland because of 3 children being stabbed. Well, the people that are rioting, it's because they want to be able to vocalize who and how many immigrants come into the country, because they want to sort of keep their culture. And those that have that opinion are being labeled as hateful and spreaders of hate. And even they want to arrest people if you express that type of notion on the internet. You can, in Europe, not just in Ireland, but in other places in Europe, you can be arrested for expressing political views on the internet because they'll be labeled as hate speech. So in Canada, we need to also be very careful when our government wants to criminalize hate speech, because it's not going to be used very much for protecting people against bullying. It's going to be used to imprison people with opposing views, and that's not what our forefathers fought for when they fought for liberty and freedom in all the previous wars. So let's move on. That's the end of this show. Thank you for making it through. I know it was a little bit of a wild one, a little all over the place, but I'm Johnny from Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, and would love it if you support this small family business by giving a good old thumbs up, share this content, and of course, turn your bell notifications on so you don't miss out.